some insights from Nouriel Roubini, chairman of Roubini Global Economics. He joins us on the line from New York. Nouriel, you say however you look at it, the plan is flawed.
Yes, in my view, the plan is flawed. It's, first of all, it's very, very expensive, and it's not going to resolve this financial crisis, because to resolve it, you need to buy the assets that are toxic, but you have to do two other things that are missing in the plan. One, to recover the banking system with injections of public and private money. And secondly, you need also to reduce the debt burden for the household sector, since millions of households are effectively bankrupt. So unless you have debt reduction for the households, there will be a massive amount of foreclosure, millions of them, and the economic recession and the financial crisis is going to get worse. So this plan is very flawed, it's going to be very expensive, and it's not going to solve this financial crisis, in my view.
So what are the implications? I mean, it is about to go through. They're about to vote on it, and the likelihood is that it will go through. Will the market like it?
So in the short run, the markets are going to rally, I'm sure, in part because this is effectively a bailout of the shareholders and of the unsecured creditors of the financial system. So the markets are going to like these huge bailouts. But since the fundamental problems that have to be addressed, one of recapitalizing the banking system and one of reducing the debt burden of the household sector, is not going to be resolved by this plan. I think that this by previous government intervention are going to essentially fizzle out. You know, the market is going to rally for a few days, and when the fundamentals sink in that we're still in a severe recession, we're still in a severe financial crisis, the market is going to fall again.
Now, given what you have just said, you're expecting more losses ahead?
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
Given what you have just said, you're expecting more losses ahead?
Absolutely. There'll be at least $2 trillion of losses in the financial system, because this is not just a subprime problem. It's subprime, it's near prime, it's prime, it's commercial real estate, it's credit cards, it's auto loans, it's student loans, it's leverage loans, it's money bonds, it's corporate bonds, it's CDS. Calling it this is a subprime mortgage problem is an understatement. Where the biggest asset bubble and credit bubble in U.S. history is going bust, and the effects are going to be a severe banking crisis where hundreds of banks are going to go bust regardless of this plan. So this is a much more severe and deep financial crisis.
So we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. Now, there's a clause requiring the president to offer a plan to recover any losses of taxpayers after 5 years. What are the implications for the next administration?
You know, the law says you have to recover the losses, but in every banking crisis, the net losses are huge because the recovery values are much less than the initial cost of the plan. So it's just kind of like a cheap talk to say the government is going to have to recover the losses. The only way you can recover the losses is by taxing financial institutions big time, and that's going to be negative for economic growth. So that particular clause is totally meaningless. This is going to be a hugely expensive fiscal bailout, and it's also not just expensive, but it doesn't even do the job. I think they did a rushed job because the Congress wants to go home and go and campaign for the election, and it was a very poor piece of legislation. It's not going to resolve the fundamental problem in the financial system.
Nouriel, 12 banks have collapsed so far. That's $42 billion in total assets. Some say we'll see about, 100 failing by the end of next year. What's your take on that?
I do agree. There are about 700 banks that, based on a variety of indicators, are in a critical condition, even if the FDIC has only 117 in its watch list. And I do believe that you'll have at least 100, if not 150 banks with about $1 trillion of assets and deposits going to be essentially going bankrupt in the next year or so. This is a severe financial crisis, and this legislation is not going to resolve the fact that there are many insolvent banking institutions that are going to go belly up.